Every single week, I speak to at least 50 other web designers, either in communities or my own course, where we'll talk about, okay, where are you in business right now? What's the bottleneck? And so often, that bottleneck is, Sam, I don't know what to charge. I don't know how to come to a fee. And so I just kind of fall back on the thing that I've always done, which is like $1,000 for a project. Now, if that project is worth $1,000, then great. But so many people get stuck for years at this fee because they don't have the confidence, or they don't have the tools to be able to raise their rates and charge an effective fee that clients don't bat an eyelid at. So what I want to do in this video is give you a little bit more info and context about how I do it, and then how you can scale your rates and charge a proper fee to proper clients as well. So I've got a few notes here to make sure that we hit everything. And one thing I'll say is there's four key principles to how I actually come to the fee that I do when I send proposals to clients. But before we get into all of that, I just want to preface this by saying you should always, with every single project, be looking to raise your rates. So if you think, I'm thinking about charging $1,000 for this project, each project where you feel like that's what you should be charging, add another $100 on every single time. That's the easiest way to scale your rates, is really, really small increments that you probably don't feel comfortable doing it, but it's not too uncomfortable that you just crumble and don't do it. And to a client, $100 difference is nothing. So before we get into the principles, that's just a tidbit that I want to leave you with immediately, is just scale your rates really, really slowly and incrementally, but make sure you are actively doing so. It's all well and good saying it, but then you actually have to go and do it with every project. If you don't do that, then it's going to be impossible to move from where you are, because you feel paralyzed by the jump that you know that you need to take. And you can't take it because the gap between what you're charging now and what you know you should be charging is so large. So ingrain that behavior immediately. Every project, scale ever so slightly. And with that in mind, I want to quickly touch on why you shouldn't really productize your service as a web designer. The reason for this is, most websites have different needs. One client is going to come to you with an e-commerce build. I want 50 products and 4 main pages, like core pages: home, about, services, store. Then another client is going to come to you, maybe they're a tech startup and they don't sell anything on the site, but they're going to want to raise investment. So they need 10 pages and they want application forms for investors. You may end up charging the tech company more because it's going to take more time to perfect the UX of the site. They want to make sure that the flow is correct and speaks to their target audience. It could be a much longer, drawn out project. Even though you may feel like the amount of effort you need to put in on the e-com side is going to be more, it may end up being much different. You may end up putting so much more effort into this other tech company. There's so many variables that you need to take into consideration. So you could even get 2 sites, they're both 10 pages. Okay, well, should I charge the same rate for both? Well, no, because you don't have any other pillars to assess this on. Who is the client? What are they going to be doing on the site? Do they need a portfolio? Do they need a blog section? Do they need an e-com store in there? What sort of forms do they need? Do they need custom code? Do they need branding? There's so many elements that go into this. And what we want to do is not restrict ourselves into, we only offer a 4-page website with this function and this function, because then you alienate every other client who wants a bespoke site. I know people do productize sites. I just don't think every client is going to fit into that mold, and you are losing out on business. So on the flip side, you've got clients who don't want to fill in these gigantic forms. They don't want to tell you absolutely everything about the business. So So these four pillars that we're going to come on to now. They are what I assess every client on. It's an onboard form based around these four fundamental assessments of their needs as a client. So number one is going to be the amount of pages. That's a pretty simple one. You're going to be able to assess roughly, how many pages that the client is going to need. A client will often ask, well, what's a page? Because we forget that what's second nature to us makes no sense to a client. Like, that is why they pay us to do this. So I will walk a client through and say, hey, I would class a page as home, about, contact, services, main, I call them core pages. And then what I wouldn't class as a page is like a terms of service or a privacy policy. And then I would say, I wouldn't class like an article, so blog article, as a page, because if a client has 500 articles, I'm not going to charge them for 500 full pages because there's not much design that goes into a blog. It's just like a import of blog data. So that's an important differentiation to make for the client, because they can say, okay, I've got a blog with 100 blogs in. Okay, well, I know it takes less effort to do a blog subpage than it does to do like a normal page. So that's something to take into consideration, is amount of pages and the weighting of the complexity of those pages. So is it a core main page, or is it a blog subpage? Is it a portfolio subpage? Is it an e-commerce product? Those aren't main, well, I'll just call them core pages. They're not core pages, they're subpages. How many times can one person say pages in a minute? Who knows? Then at number two, we've got complexity of design. So how complex do these pages need to be? What are the pages, and how complex are they going to be? What needs to go into it? How many sections are within that page? Do we need to do any additional design work? Do we need to add any code into there? Do we need to add any CSS styling onto that page? How intricate is the design going to be itself? Like, if we have a really simple minimalist website that's just text, a couple of images, text, image, button, well then that's going to be much, much less than someone who needs videos, overlapping shape elements, movement on those elements. We need galleries, summary blocks, all of this brought into the page, and it's like a super long page. Think about Tesla's homepage versus Apple's product page. The product page is going to be way more complex to design and would cost a lot more to build than a simple Tesla homepage. In fact, if you go on the boringcompany.co or .com, I don't know. But if you go to the Boring Company's website, that's on Squarespace, which is what I build on. And you'll see super simple, like it's an image, text with parallax scroll repeated like 6 times. That would take an hour to build, whereas the Apple product page has all these moving elements. It's got let's imagine it's for the iPhone. It moves as you go down, it spins around. There's lots of complex design in there. And so you're not going to be, well, maybe you are going to be doing something as complex as Apple, but you can see these are two ends of the spectrum. Minimalist, not many elements on the page, versus maximalist, many, many different elements on the page that also interact. So that brings me on to number 3, which is custom functionality and integrations. So an integration would be like a Calendly embed block, or a Zapier or Zapier launch sequence. Like, someone submits a form, Zap goes to G Drive, goes to Slack, goes to email, whatever. So how many integrations does the client need? Do they need Hotjar embedding so they can track a heat map of users? Do they need Google Analytics adding? Do they need HubSpot newsletter forms, contact forms? What do they need to be integrated into that website? So I will ask for that of the client. Hey, do you have any third-party softwares that we need to know about that will integrate into the website? Same goes for custom functionality. So do we need to build filters on the blogs? Do we need to build filters on portfolios or filters within the store? Do we need to add 360 product mock-ups? what do we need to do for you? Like what's a non-negotiable? And then if you want, what are some nice to haves? And so we can bake that into the price, but we need to know that up front, because if you just start saying, hey, well, we need all of this extra, then we would have to bill extra for that. And then finally, we've got the total length of the project. So just because something has a lot of pages doesn't mean it will take long. Think of the Boring Company example. We need to be taken into account based on what we know. So total pages, complexity of those pages, plus integrations and like coding work and functionality that we need to build. How long will that take, including client feedback sessions, including comms, including any additional work that needs to be done? How long on a a time scale, so a monthly time scale, will this take? A project that's going to take 3 months, you need to factor in then opportunity cost. You need to factor in your own calendar. If you have a team, then you need to factor in the team. There's lots of different factors that would go into that time frame. Say, okay, well, how long do I estimate this roughly to take? It could be a couple of weeks, could be a couple of months. This will give you a rough time frame. You can put that in the proposal, and then you should be able to arrive at a fee after that. So let's go through an example together. If I am working with a non-profit based in the US, and let's go through the factors. So they are non-profit and they need 20 pages. The complexity of the design is not too much. They just want to have like events. They want to have a blog. On their pages, they just want to show images and videos with calls to action to donate or sign up for sign up for their events. Okay, then custom functionality, they want a filter build. Cool. Integrations, they have HubSpot for forms and newsletter, and they want Google Analytics and Calendly integrated too. Okay, I think that will take me and my team about 6 weeks. Cool. Okay, so if I factor in all of that, the value, and I need to pay the team, that's going to be about $15,000, roughly there or thereabouts. Now that is pie in the sky. I've just come up with that number in about a minute. I would need to sit down properly and go through the client onboard form to know that. But that is where I am right now. I started doing those types of websites for like $200. Slowly scaled until I became comfortable with charging rates at this level. I've charged $75,000 for it was a collection of sites for the same client. Clients will pay this because there is immense value in a website. That is their shop window to the entire world. And so when you go into quote clients for the work, you need to remember this. You are the one doing them the favor. You are creating something great for them. You're creating a sales asset. You're creating a home online, their own slice of the internet for them. And if you know you're good enough, then you need to start upping your rate ever so slightly constantly until you reach a sort of equilibrium where okay, this is my rate. I'm happy with this rate. This is enough for my value right now. Then you need to continue to scale as your skill goes up, as your staff costs go up, and honestly, as the demand for your services goes up. Hopefully that's been useful for you. These are the exact factors that I take into account when I build proposals for clients. If you did find it useful, please make sure to leave a like and hit subscribe. And if you want to learn more about my program, which teaches web designers how to scale to 6 figures in less than a year, the link is in the description.